Happy crazy holiday season. I was laughing that this is the time of year where I feel like if you have children in school, schools are like, please dress your child in some themed thing every day. You are yourself, if you celebrate Christmas, trying to get or Hanukkah or whatever, trying to figure out like all the things. I realized that I counted up all the things and people coming to my house, and we have 18 people coming, of which I was like, well, that's a lot more than I anticipated. And so, it's just that time of year. So lovely to see everyone. And why don't we start by just doing a quick round of hellos? Digit, do you want to start?
Sure, Digit McCracken. I work for Oregon State University. I'm the Youth CTE Trades and Workforce Development Specialist, and I'm over in Grant County, but I work statewide. You want me to pass it maybe over to Ashley?
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Ashley, and I'm the board administrator for this board, and I also support OE. I'm going to pass it over to Hillary.
I'm Hillary Blackstone. Sorry, I just took a bite of bagel. I wasn't planning on talking. I am the a youth program specialist with the Office of Workforce Investments in HEC, and I'm based in Salem and have grants across the state through Oregon Conservation Corps. I guess I'll pass it over to Mike.
Hello, hope you can hear me as I'm on my phone. My name is Mike Norman, and I'm a program analyst with the Oregon YouthWorks team within OE, and I'm a grant administrator for the Oregon Youth Corps program. And I will pass it on to whoever wants to take it next. I'm not in front of my screen right now.
Raina, do you want to go?
I will. I'm between bites. Rena Langston, Program Director for Southwestern Oregon Workforce Investment Board, serving Coos, Curry, and Douglas counties.
Let's see, who has
Oops.
gone? Jim, oh, go ahead.
Joshua.
Hi, I'm Joshua Davis Johnson. I go by JJ usually. Call me either. I'm the Assistant CFO over at Alternative Youth Activities, and we serve Coos and Curry counties. And I'll pass it off to Taylor.
Thanks, Josh. JJ, so glad you're with us. Congratulations on joining. Jim Taylor with Oregon Housing Disaster Recovery, part of the Team Oregon Build Coalition. And I'm going to pass it to Belinda, who I got to spend some wonderful days with at a recent conference for resilient, what was it, ridgetop to rooftop. Belinda?
Yes, thank you for that, Jim. That was amazing. Having youth on a panel. So Chimisunwi, Belinda Brown, I'm co-selecta band member of the Ajumawi Otsaga Nation, otherwise known as the Pit River Tribe. I've worked for the last 10 years as the Tribal Partnerships Director with Lomacotsi Restoration Project in Ashland, Oregon, and hailing from Shasta Nation land today. And I will pass it to, has Jeremy went?
Good afternoon, everyone. Jeremy Ahla. I'm with the Office of Workforce Investments with the youth team as well. My role is kind of ever evolving, but putting more of an emphasis on system alignment and tribal workforce partnerships. Great to see you all today, and look forward to hearing from the meeting. Let's go over to, I think, let's see, maybe Miranda.
Thanks, Jeremy. Hi, everybody. I am Miranda Scheiding. I'm a manager at the Office of Workforce Investments, and I get to work with all these cool people on the call. Rudy, have you had a chance to go yet? I was trying to track it, but lost track mentally.
No, I haven't. Thank you, Miranda. Buenas tardes. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Rudy Ann Rivera Lindstrom, and I am the HECS Director of DEIA and Agency Tribal Liaison. It's good to see everybody, and happy holidays. And I think I'll pass it. I think Stephanie just jumped on.
Hello, my apologies for being late. Hi, everyone. I am Steph Solomon. I'm with the Higher Education Coordinating Commission, Office of Workforce Investments,
Oregon YouthWorks team. I am one of their program analysts, grant administrators. I work primarily with the 9 local workforce development boards with for federal and state funding. And since I just joined, I have no clue who actually has gone. So
who are we missing that has not gone yet?
yes, thanks, Brooke.
I think Matt.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. Matt is on my list.
Hello, yep, Matt Collins, also with the Oregon YouthWorks team at the Office of Workforce Investments. I am a program analyst with the team, and I mostly get to help each of the grant admins with their programs and kind of plop in wherever is best needed at the time. And it's great to be here. And I don't think there's anyone else left, but for anyone, okay, I'm seeing some head nods to the sideways. Okay.
Awesome.
Just Doug.
Thank you so much.
Just me.
Yeah.
I'm fine. Hey everybody, Doug Denning, and here today in my capacity as the director for the Oregon YouthWorks Advisory Board.
And for those of you that don't know me, I'm Brooke Brownlee, and I lead the labor, workforce, and community engagement teams at Portland General Electric. Jim, do you want to take over from here?
Certainly can. Thank you. We are going to move into the action item of approving the meeting minutes. They were supplied to everybody on Tuesday in an update to the calendar invite. We'd be looking for, actually just going to put them up on the screen. We'd be looking for a motion to approve.
So moved.
And a second.
This is Rena, I'll second.
Thank you. And if I could ask for a thumbs up on screen or an aloud yes to approve.
Yes.
All right. And any nays, please, thumbs down or an aloud no. Okay. Has passed. Thank you very much. Public comment. Ashley, do we have any folks who have requested time to comment, or anybody present in the meeting wishing to make a public comment?
No public comment. Thank you.
Okay, and I don't see any other persons present. All right. Look at us. Look at our efficiencies. Let us move forward to Mr. Doug Denning at 111. We got some number magic going there, Doug. All right.
I love it. Thanks,
Director's
Jim.
report, if you please.
Well, and since we talk about, look at us just clicking right along, I wanted to just point out at the very first, in the agenda or on the agenda, we have a schedule to start at 1 and be over at 3:30, which is the intention. Towards the end for the 2026 meeting dates, I don't think we're going to spend like 40 minutes or whatever's on the agenda for that topic. But it was kind of built in as slush time. It'll allow, we have a guest presentation coming on. It will allow extra time for that, and it will allow extra time for discussion, probably when we're talking about the goals that were set back when we met together in Coos Bay. So just as a disclaimer there at the beginning, a few things I wanted to cover. One is what's going on with the budget. I think there may be a little bit of confusion because there were two things that happened very closely together, and they were two very separate asks. And in a lot of folks' minds, they've kind of been blended together. In mine, I have a hard time making sure that I refer to them correctly. But the first one was a governor's ask of state agencies, and it was for agencies to do an exercise to reduce their budgets, their administrative budgets, by 1.5%. So the Higher Education Coordinating Commission did that. And really the way that 1.5% was met for the agency was through some vacant positions. There was a moratorium put on our travel, as you all know, and then just other agency admin costs where they could trim it. And that it was 700 and some change, 700,000 and some change is what those cuts worked out to. But then just within a few weeks, there was another ask, and it's the one that's really been, I think, probably in the news a little bit more. And that's an ask from the Joint Committee on Ways and Means. So Just a reminder for those of you that are pretty new to the legislative process, the Joint Committee on Ways and Means is the budget committee, basically for the state's budget. They hold the purse strings. There are different subcommittees that fall with under this larger committee, but that is their job, is to work through and set the budgets for the state of Oregon, including agency budgets. So they made a request to the agencies, and this was around the beginning of October. When session closed, when the budget was approved, the current budget we're operating on, the economic forecast was pretty rosy, and then it wasn't rosy, and then it is kind of rosy again. It has changed, but it's not as bad as what folks thought. So it's been going back and forth, up and down on where the state thinks we'll land with dollars. However, all that said, the legislature is pretty sure that they'll have to rebalance the budget, and they'll do that in the short session, which starts in February of 2026. And so in order to do that and to start the prep work, they asked the agencies to go through an exercise of 5% reductions. And really what was submitted, I believe, is a 2.5% reduction, a 5% reduction. And it was really across all funds. It was across other funds, the state general fund, and against or included, I'm losing lottery funds. So HEC worked through that. What HEC provided is a recommendation. It's not even it is a recommendation. It's a recommendation, I guess, with an analysis of what those cuts would mean. This isn't something that the governor has requested. This isn't something that the agency is jumping up and down to say, yes, this is the budget we want to move forward. This is the scenario is if we lose 2.5% to 5% of our budget, this is what it could look like, to give an idea to Ways and Means so that they can start having those conversations and decide where they want to trim budgets and where they don't. So part of that, it went out. You all should have received a copy of what our executive director, Ben Cannon, put together and submitted. And it included, cuts to the youth program, proposed cuts to the youth program. It included a proposed staffing cut, potentially. But again, those things aren't set in stone. Those aren't things that we're trying to make happen. Those are the things that could happen if we are asked to trim the budget, or if they end up trimming the budget for us, rather. So there was some confusion there on what does that mean? What's going on? Are we losing staff, or did we lose our budgets? No, not yet. I mean, we have to wait and see. And the other thing that's kind of what we're waiting for too is this last economic forecast that the state did was missing some information at the federal level because of the shutdown. And some folks say that, well, it will change the forecast that was given. Others say, no, it really won't, because there are other indicators that they relied on. Brooke, go ahead.
I was just going to make it super clear that the legislature will ultimately is the decision maker on the budget cuts. So to Doug's point, while the agency proposals are kind of to help inform, ultimately the legislature is the deciding factor on that. So it could look very different if they have to do those cuts. So I just want to be really clear that if the state does have to move forward with a percentage of cuts, whether it's 2.5 or 5 or 1, that just because the agency has put forward that proposal does not mean that that's what the end proposal will be. And in fact, it would likely not be, just based on my experience with how Ways and Means budgets go. So.
Thanks, Brooke. Yeah, and we still have one economic forecast to go before they'll have those conversations, and we'll see where that lands. I don't know that anybody's got a crystal ball on that one. In the process, the HEC presented to Ways and Means, what those cuts could be, what the results of those cuts would be, what the losses would be to Oregonians and to the communities throughout Oregon. So they heard it, they took it, and we will wait and see what happens coming up here in February. And if there's any kind of an indicator before that we hear of it that's public, we'll get it out. But I kind of doubt. I think it's going to be a wait and see. So any questions on the budget stuff before I change categories? All right. So I guess I'm not really completely changing categories. It is part of the budget conversation, but I do want to point out and remind folks that when we talk about the HEX budget, one thing that is not in current service level or something that would roll over automatically with our agency budget is funding for the Oregon Conservation Corps. So once again, it is hanging and is an outlier. And what does that mean coming into, the legislative sessions and budget making? We're not sure. We're going into the short session looking at there could be these potential cuts. We know that it's not in current service level. The agency is likely going to be looking at, requesting what we currently have. I think that they will, I'm told we will definitely fight for the current allocation of $5 million. Whether we try to recoup the $5 million that wasn't funded, that's just kind of an open question, and we'll have to wait and see where things land. I think that's all I wanted to just point out real quickly on that. Rena, go ahead. Oops, you're muted.
I'm just curious, why is that separate? Why is Conservation Corps kind of separate?
Wow, short answer, long answer, because it's kind of a long answer. See if I can do this quickly off the top of my head, not confuse folks. So when the Oregon Conservation Corps was created and became part of a statute, a bill 762 that went through and created the program, there were two components to it. There was a state component of a general fund investment, and then there was this other investment that was going to be from private donors or other donations or funders outside of the state. We could technically maybe look at federal funds, and so there was this matching program. That's how the legislation was written. The bill that was a part of Senate Bill 762 was highly controversial. It had to do, really, the controversy was around the maps that the state was going to make that were going to determine the risk areas of where people lived for wildfire. And that kind of threw everything sideways. So at the very end of the session in 2021, there was a special committee that was formed. And that special committee went in and they reached an agreement. They came out with a bipartisan, yes, we can move this forward, it'll get the votes. During that conversation, they switched the formulas around on how we were going to be funded. They switched it to be a $10 million investment in general fund and $1 million investment to be used as matching funds against those private donations. So the staffing part of Oregon Conservation Corps was put into HEX CSL budget because that's how the intent of the original legislation was, that this will be primarily funded with donor funds, not necessarily general fund. So there wasn't a general fund allocation ever put into the budget. So that was the original thing. We've gone through a couple of biennia since, and there have been attempts to get that added. And the agency has been very supportive of keeping the program, of funding the program, but it's, in the end, it's not the agency's call, as Brooke mentioned before. That's really the legislature's to work through and to determine. And it's also the governor's. The governor can, if we have it in, say, an agency budget, the governor can take it out of the agency budget and not include it in her budget, which is what has happened in the past, and one time anyway. So it just is, it's out there. It's an outlier. People have to fight for it every 2 years, and we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens coming up in the 2027 session. But that's the best answer I can give you without even getting more technical, Rena. I hope that helps.
No, that is helpful. Thank you.
And then just one final reminder. Oh, I was just going to say, Doug, one final thing, that the agency staff cannot advocate for anything that is not in the governor's recommended budget. So that's one additional caveat, which for some of you who are newer, you have not experienced that with this kind of moving of that those dollars around in the budget. There's other ways that advocacy can happen, but staff themselves are not allowed to advocate if it's not included in the governor's recommended budget.
Yeah, and that's a perfect segue actually into our next, the next topic here, the legislative process, the legislative sessions that are coming up. And Brooke's absolutely correct. And it really, traditionally, we've been able to go out and gather support for anything that really made sense that the agency wanted to put into the budget and included in the agency's request budget. This last legislative session with the current governor was different. The governor stepped in early on and worked with the agencies to determine what she wanted to see in the agency request budgets. It's a different process, ruffled some feathers, but that's what went forward. That's how we moved. So we were even more limited in what we could say as staff because we weren't able to have that full contact that we traditionally had. So what'll happen this coming session, full session, we don't know. We'll wait and see. So there are two sessions. We call them the short session and the long session. The short sessions are every even number year. The long sessions are every odd number year. Really the difference between them is the long sessions are the traditional legislative sessions. They start at the beginning of the year. They last into June. And the state budget is determined. All kinds of other policies, laws are talked about and either amended, passed, or killed. The short session really was put into place to take care of some policy gaps, take care of emergency needs. It's really not a time to go in and make additional asks, although that happens. It wasn't the intent of putting that into play. It was more for the policy fixes or the budget fixes. And so for this coming short session, which starts in February, this one will be important for us to watch because this will be the budget where the legislature discusses the potential budget cuts. So we'll be staying tuned to that, and we'll likely have a few update meetings. If folks can attend, great. If not, that's fine too. But just to give updates as we learn more, if there are major steps, or if looks like there will be cuts to the budget. So the long session that's coming up in 2027, which will set the budget for the 27-29 biennium, all that prep work starts way before 2027. We just had an internal office deadline of yesterday to submit proposals. So we're already working on, as an agency, what should be moved forward, or what would we like to see moved forward in that 2027 session. And there's two parts to that. There's a legislative concept, which is really more policy. It's not really a budget ask. It's a policy cleanup. It's a new program. It's a new policy. Or an amended policy. The other is the policy option package, which is the budget piece. That's where we have financial asks. Now, if there's a new program that's coming on that requires policy and would have a budget piece, those things get blended. That's way above my pay grade, how that happens and how they separate that out. But it does magically happen with a bunch of folks that work hard over at the Capitol. So yeah, the process really is, just to kind of hit all the moving parts. We've already started working on the request for the HEC to come up with their agency request budget. They will have that. The next major step, and that the proposals that we turned in yesterday will go to HEC executive team. They'll have those conversations about what should move forward, what shouldn't move forward. It'll eventually go to the full HEC commission. The commission will decide what's going to move forward, and then we wait and we get the governor's recommended budget. Everything gets debated over the course of 5+ months, and then finally there is the legislatively adopted budget, which is the legal budget for the state, and that's the one that will be signed off on, and that will likely be probably the last bill or within the last couple of bills that go through that session. As Brooke mentioned too, we have to be very careful about lobbying. Once something's in the governor's budget, then we accept that and we don't go out and lobby. And we can't really lobby for anything, but what we can do is we can provide information. So there may be opportunities coming up, and maybe even in the short session, who knows? But definitely in the full session, long session, there should be opportunities for us to go ahead and talk about the programs. And when I say us, it could be program staff. It could be members of a board, such as yourselves, to go in and talk about the programs and on the ground and what those outcomes are and how they change lives. It's also individual programs can go and testify. And we help coordinate that as much as we can without lobbying, but we can certainly handle the logistics of all of that. Belinda, I don't know if I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you want to say anything, Lomakotsi has been very good about bringing folks up, bringing young people up, as well as their executive staff to talk to the legislature each session to describe the impact. And it looks like Arena's got a question too.
Yeah, I would just, we're still available. It's very, very powerful when the young people come and advocate for their program. These are life-changing experiences. I don't need to tell all you that those stories that strike the heart chord of the Ways and Means Committee get a lot of distance. So thank you for that.
And Rena?
Yeah, Stephanie can probably speak to this better than I can, but part of the our youth group of the WIOA, the boards and their providers is working on a youth day at the Capitol to get some displays going at the Capitol and having, 1,000 youth hopefully storm the Capitol steps to advocate youth programs. So we're talking about doing a video displays the first year and then moving to hard displays in future years. Steph, you can probably say it a lot better than I can.
No, you did great, Rena. Yes. So we have a statewide youth work group that has the local workforce board staff, program staff represented, as well as we also have a service provider group as well. And one of the projects that the work group is undertaking is looking at some youth visits or legislative days at the Capitol, and primarily during the long session, right? Short session, too soon and not the appropriate time probably. And so long session, I'm looking at that. One of the things that we're also looking at is the potential of applying to be one of the exhibits that are inside the Capitol. They have the first year that you're there, the first several months, your virtual kind of gallery, and then it's in person in the Capitol. And so we're working through kind of what that application might look like, what we might want to have that look like, and if it's feasible to get the 9 local boards and their service providers in this collaborative space. As you can imagine, it's a lot of logistics trying to get everyone together, trying to work through that. But that's something that we're also considering. But definitely having the youth, kind of to Rena's phrase, storm the Capitol in a very organized, friendly manner. Having the youth come, and whether it's a day, a week, or a couple of days. So that is something that the local workforce boards and their service providers are very interested in. And so we've been in communication a bit with Doug, just kind of letting him know that this is what they're interested in and pursuing. And so this will be a large coordinated effort with you all and with the local workforce boards. Yep.
All right, I think one quick last item for updates, and then we will move on. And Jim and Brooke, just a heads up, been messaging with Todd. It looks like he's having some computer problems logging on. And we also do have a special guest that is going to accompany Todd, Tony Frazier, who is online. So we'll see what happens here in a few minutes if Todd's able to join, and if not, we'll have a quick brainstorm session on what we'd like to do to move forward. So the last thing on my updates, just a quick update on board membership. I believe I had sent out an email Oh, it looks like Todd is on. Or at least he got it fixed. I don't see Todd, but who knows? Oh, there's 2 pages now. Anyway, Heidi resigned from the committee. I don't think she necessarily retired, but she's kind of was rethinking about her next steps and decided that she would go ahead and step down from her position on the board. So that created another opening. We still have 1 remaining opening. So right now we have 2 total. We also have a new, there's new representation in the governor's office for us to work with. There's I say new in air quotes, policy advisor, workforce policy advisor to the governor. Sarah Means is her name. She replaced Sarah Foster. Sarah Foster left and went to work at the employment department. And the executive assistant for Sarah Foster, who was Ashley Wright, who was able to attend a few meetings and really help do all the background work to get you all on the board. She's also moved on. So we have a new representative. Her name is Peck Sakan, and met with her a couple of times. She's super enthusiastic. She couldn't make today, but she does plan to attend, my goodness, the meetings that are coming up in 2026. So that's cool. And just a quick reminder of what membership looks like. In statute, we have to make sure that membership includes the forestry or wildfire sector, natural resources sector, workforce sectors that are experiencing high workforce demands, communities at high risk of wildfire exposure, underrepresented communities, tribal communities, and local workforce development boards. So we'll be working on that, try to get those 2 positions filled at the first of the year. If you have any suggestions, please let me know. We can do that offline, but shoot me an email or a text message or instant message, and we can definitely chat about that. We would like to have 1 more representative that can bring forth a young person voice, and young person rather than youth voice, up through age 24, 25. Would be nice. And particularly someone who is very familiar with the programs, or very familiar with the work, or the goal of the work that all of our programs do. So stay tuned on all of that. And with that, Jim, if there are no questions, I am going to turn back to you.
Okay. Are there any questions? Counting to 10. All right, and we shall move forward. Todd, can we check in with you? Are you feeling good about the computer? All right, super.
Yes,
and
I'm feeling
Tony's
better
with us as
about
well.
the computer, Jim. It's good to see your smiling face.
All right.
And yours as well, Brooke, as co-chairs to the committee. Appreciate the opportunity to be here today. And wow, it's kind of like old times on several fronts, being in a meeting with either and or both of you. So thank you. Yeah, so joining me today, well, maybe I should back up. My name is Todd Nell. I'm the director of the Workforce and Talent Development Board, which is the state board here in the state of Oregon. Today, I'm here to chat a little bit about our roles and responsibilities at the state level, also a bit about our current strategic plan, which is just finishing up on year 1. It's a 2-year strategic plan from 25 to 26. A little bit more about our work, and then sort of dig into what Doug had asked me to do, and maybe set the stage for a bit of a conversation today, time permitting, around how the Workforce and Talent Development Board can better partner with the work that you're doing, and where it makes sense and you so desire, as a body, we can help, if possible, raise up this work, better partner, and ultimately, and most importantly, achieve better outcomes for you. So that's me. That's what we're going to touch on. I say we because one of our esteemed colleagues on the WTDB is here today to help with this conversation, and I'll toss it over his way real quick so he can introduce himself, and then we'll jump in.
Hello, everyone. Tony Frazier here. Hi, Brooke. Good to see you again. Yeah, looking forward to chatting with y'all.
And I'll just say, for those of you who don't know, Tony Frazier is the, I think, executive director, if that's the right title, maybe, okay, of the Kroc Center here in Salem, Oregon, which is an amazing nonprofit organization that does an incredible amount of things, not only for the Salem and surrounding community, but I would say for youth as well as some adults. And I don't know, Tony, it's pretty amazing. I know I called you out at the WTDB meeting, but I love it when you give a little bit of your elevator speech in terms of what y'all do.
Yeah, so if you haven't been to the Kroc Center, it's a 95,000 square foot community center. We have 2 swimming pools, a rock wall, 30-foot rock wall, climbing wall. And we have gym space, workout equipment, and meeting space, actually. If you ever want to have a meeting, Kroc's a good place to do it. We also do in-house catering, which allows us some unique things we can add to youth programming, such as a gym and a swimming pool. We have a GED program in partnership with Chemeketa Community College running inside of our building. We started off with a capacity of serving 18 kids. We were able to double that capacity to 36 kids. And I just learned today that this semester we had 13 graduates so far. That's very exciting. These are young people who were not going to finish through mainstream pathways. And so we were happy to find them and re-engage them and get them moving forward again. I'm very excited about that. And I like to say that we're the only GED program that can offer 2 swimming pools on a 30-foot rock wall and workout equipment. But anyway, yeah, it's a fun building. We like to use it as much as we can.
Yeah, and I would thank you, Tony, and I would underscore the meeting part of that. We've had several WTDB meetings there in the past, and I'm remembering. Well, I have fond memories of some work we also did there with our friend colleague Jim Taylor around some of the work that he and Tony have partnered in on the past. Maybe we'll get to a little bit of that here in a bit in terms of ways in maybe things that we've done in the past that have helped align work as it relates to youth. So Ashley, are you able to pull up that slide deck?
Yep, give me one moment.
So again, a bit about the roles and responsibilities, our strat plan, and some work that we're doing, and then an opportunity to hear a little bit about what I hinted at there from Tony, and some of the conversations we've been having lately, of which I think Jim has at least been part of one. So. And while we're waiting for the slide deck, I just want to say thank you, Brooke, for coming to the WTDB meeting, which was definitely a popcorn thriller for the most part, and sharing all the great work that you and your team at PGE are doing around the Clean Energy Workforce Coalition. I'm going to take a little bit of a liberty here, so I hope I'm okay saying this, Brooke. I'm really excited about a potential connectivity coming around the corner here, which I think will hopefully come to fruition. But Brooke will be applying, if she hasn't already, to fill a seat on the Workforce and Talent Development Board. So thank you for your interest in that role. And we look forward to, hopefully, which I think is a strong possibility, I can't say for sure because I don't make the call, but of you being on the Workforce and Talent Development Board.
Thank you. I'm very excited. Clearly, I love workforce if it's not clear to the people on the call.
Okay, did we get the slide deck, or should I share my screen? Yep, awesome.
Todd and Tony, I'm just going to say this, and for the rest of I forgot to say this at the beginning of the meeting. I have an immovable doctor's appointment that I have to leave for in like 10 minutes. So it is not you, it's me.
Okay.
So
Well, I hope everything is okay.
When I jump off. It is.
Yeah,
it's just an impossible doctor to get into. So
yeah, well, yeah. All right. Good luck with all that. Okay, could you go to the next slide, please? So in terms a little bit about the State Workforce Board's role, for those who may not know, and a refresher for those maybe who need it. The state board advises and assists the governors on many fronts, including on state plans and policy and strategies. It also serves as a sort of high level yet broad-based table that provides vision and leadership, innovation, and gets into continuous improvement, accountability around holding the particularly the public workforce system, or as many of you know at WorkSource Oregon, accountable to outcomes. And it really strives to improve, and we talked about this a lot, right, Brooke? Customer value and collaborative solutions and systems alignment. So it's a pretty high level policy board, but its reach is beyond just WorkSource Oregon into K-12 and connecting with the university system. So next slide, please. So I wanted to share a little bit about the evolution of the strategic plan, how it's being implemented, and then a bit more for you all to better understand, keeping it pretty high level. When I first took on the role back in the day, which, it's hard for me to really say this because it doesn't seem like it went by pretty fast. Well, for the most part, 10 years ago, the strat plan was probably 30 or more pages. And it's sort of that proverbial story where it sat on the shelf in a notebook, hard copy, and really didn't get paid that much attention to because it was so long. And so in short order, with leadership on the board, we were able to lessen that to what it is now. It's really a front and back one page with an additional metrics page, which you'll see in a minute. And maybe I'll just pop in. I should have said this earlier for those of you who may not know. The board is mandated by federal and state law, and it's mandated in terms of a membership to have a majority of the board comprised of business leaders. The other balance of the board is, as you might expect, state agency leadership and local board leadership, as well as community-based organizations and nonprofits, hence Tony joining as a important community-based organization here in the Salem-Keizer area. In terms of implementation of the strategic plan, I don't know if that, I just tested that link right before I came on. I think at least it was broken on my copy. Can you click on that link, Ashley, on the implementation link and see if it will open up the document that was there? It may not. Let's see. Well, let's just assume.
It is not working, sorry.
Okay, that's okay. Could you go back to that slide? We'll just keep trucking along. And next one, that one. So in terms of the implementation, we have done, thank you, Miranda Scheiding. I saw you were on here, and Jen Denning, Doug's other, I won't say better half, but I almost did. Other half, Jennifer Denning, who are working on a detailed tracking system for the strategic plan so that the state board members and state staff can stay on top of where we're at over the course of the biennium for which it is valid. I wanted to show you a little bit of that, but just suffice it to say that I think there's been some really positive change at the Office of Workforce Investment. Again, thank you to Miranda Scheiding for her leadership. That's really helped spur this. But we've got a lot of the staff within the office that are more involved in, and some of their capacity is being utilized to help with the efforts around those things I touched on earlier in terms of continuous improvement efforts, innovation, accountability, systems alignment, and on, so goes the list. I wanted to quickly show you the actual plan. and you'll be able to go back and click on this link, which I think works, Ashley. If you just click on plan and scorecard, it should pop up. So this is our, I mean, technically, literally a 3-page plan, but really when you print it out, it's 1 page and then the scorecard. So you can see here where it, as is typical with the strategic plan, calls out our mission of equitable prosperity for all, or our vision, equitable prosperity for all Oregonians, accompanied by our mission, our position sort of in the market, if you will, what we want to be known for reputationally. An important part we added not even a year ago, I think, which was a separate document, is sort of how we agree as an entity to conduct business. So it's kind of cutesy and goes along with the acronym of Workforce and Talent Development Board around call outs and commitments by board members to work collaboratively, do it with transparency and trust, while using data to drive decision making and being bold and innovative. And then if you go to the next page, it kind of gets more into the meat and potatoes of it all, where it calls out imperatives down the left side. There are 4 of those, as you can see, with corresponding objectives to the right of that. The one I think, I'm not going to read all this for you, but I encourage you to take a peek. The one I really wanted to call out today is if you go to imperative 2 under strategic alignment of systems and partners toward shared workforce goal, and then shift over to D, which is the 3rd shared workforce goal. I think obvious here in part as to why Tony and I are here today, which is influence positive youth student outcomes in workforce education and training. So we've got a directive, we've got to track this, we've got to show results to board members, and it helps us stay focused and prioritized. So if you move on to the 3rd slide, it'll give you all sort of a sense of the 18 different metrics that we have as a board. Yeah, the next slide, keep going right there. So here are the board performance measures. Again, I'm not going to read them all, but I think you can see there are different things that we're tracking over the course of this year and next year. And one of the things that came up in a meeting yesterday that I'll underscore here just quickly that I think is relevant, which is number 7, establish metrics. Sorry, it's a little hard for me to see. Establish metrics task force to increase consistent contribution. So we received a letter back in May, which I neglected to mention earlier when we were having the click struggles to get to other pages, from the governor herself, and it was May 13th of this year, directing the State Workforce Board to really lean into its role around accountability and oversight of the public workforce system through raising up and further developing performance measures that are required by Department of Labor. So that work has almost concluded. And once it is sort of signed, sealed, and delivered and approved by the board, the next step is to establish this metrics task force to not only be able to, on a regular, consistent cadence, lean into the performance measure work that I just touched on, but also to consider with partners and leaders additional metrics, similar, Brooke, to what I just saw and answered the survey on in terms of the work that you're doing for the Clean Energy Workforce Coalition. What other metrics are critical given the role of the State Workforce Board around systems alignment, innovation, accountability, continuous improvement, and so goes the list. So look for hopefully opportunity to engage there with us, because I think it is a great opportunity to establish metrics to drive performance and better outcomes for youth. So on to the next slide. So some of the things that we're involved in addition to that strategic plan and scorecard that I shared, are the Continuous Improvement Committee. It was established by Senate Bill 623 back in 21. And the long and the short of it is that its main charge is to do a WorkSource Oregon assessment every 2 years to better understand what's working well within the public workforce system, what's not, and where we can make improvements. That also provided the flexibility in the Continuous Improvement Committee, the opportunity to lean into other continuous improvement efforts that can be called out across the broader system. Secondarily, the Workforce Readiness Committee is also in full swing and has had some pretty amazing success partnering across state agencies with local workforce boards, school districts, ESD, STEM hubs, many other entities around three main buckets of work. One, Oregon employability skills, which has been an important part of the short list of priorities for the State Workforce Board. Two, an initiative on the charter that we call STEM Lift, which is really raising up STEM education and workforce development, and with a particular recent focus on how can we improve scores in math, reading, and science broadly to address some of the lagging indicators we've got in our state around math and science scores through the utilization of AI in the classroom. Thank you, Brooke. So there's a lot of work happening there. And then third chunk of the work in the Workforce Readiness Committee has to do with CTE, dual credit, focus and partnership between the Higher Education Coordinating Commission, the Oregon Department of Education, and then other education and business leaders from around the state really leaning into the opportunities that exist there. Our main deliverable, as is the case in many of these bodies of work, is a report, and it's typically an annual report with the exception of the Continuous Improvement Committee that then is produced and sent to the governor, legislature, and executive branch of state government. I've already talked a little bit about the performance measures and metrics work. So on to the next slide, please. Another couple of bodies of work that we're involved in and drive are the Biennial Oregon Talent Summit. So in short, it's a great opportunity that's well attended by the typical partners in workforce education and training, comprised of, just think of a local workforce board and the state workforce board. Those sort of representatives show up in mass. I think of the last one, we were about 450 people that showed up. This next year, it will be in May, on May 19th. Please mark your calendar. You're invited. It's free. Great opportunity to network, to, conceive of strategies on the back of a napkin. Tony and Jim, as an example, it's just a really great event. Due to budget cuts, unfortunately, we have to go from 2 to 1 day, but it will be at the Salem Convention Center. We've already got some keynotes that we're talking to. Our friend and colleague on the State Workforce Board, Adrian Bennings, for example, just agreed this morning to be one of those keynotes to bring in post-secondary, particularly community college, to the conversation. I was just on a call yesterday with ChatGPT nationally. They have a spokesperson that is considering coming out. Regardless, they committed just yesterday to me on the phone that they were going to participate also. So we're in talks on what that particularly might look like. But to better understand best practices, promising practices, issues and opportunity in our space of workforce and talent development, it's just a really great venue. So again, please mark your calendars, and we look forward to seeing you there. As I said, we often do reports or other assessments as a deliverable in many of our committees. A couple of others that were a bit different this year worth noting, and I would encourage you to go check them out. With Doug, I partnered in a legislatively mandated assessment and report for the forestry workforce. And we worked together with multiple partners across the state in that space and produced that report with the help of Echo Northwest. We also partnered with and helped with 2 other reports in behavioral health and housing that were published in partnership with Future Ready. Again, some good reads, I think, if you're interested in better understanding some of the work that we've been involved in. So in terms of the talent assessment, you'll see on this next slide some of the things that came out of that. Right, the talent assessment on a biennial basis really tries to dig into gaps, trends, opportunities, both from public and nonprofit data, but also from private sector via things like focus groups, surveys, individual interviews, and other data, pull them together and identify opportunities. So in 2024, you can see these sort of findings that came out of the assessment around aligning and strengthening the ecosystem. Next slide. On strategy 2, promoting efforts that increase workforce development and access, as well as equity for all Oregonians with call-out priorities. And these, by the way, some of you may remember how we did this, but we employed a polling app, one of the many that's on the market, at the Talent Summit last year when the 24 assessment was launched, so that everyone there could be heard and had the opportunity to participate via that polling app to inform the findings that you're seeing here. So it was a very collaborative and collective effort broadly. Next slide to see the strategy 3 that was called out is around supporting target industries and occupations through attraction, retention, and lifelong learning initiatives. We have just embarked on the 2026 talent assessment. The advisory committee is formed. We've just hired the contractor. And so that work is in full swing almost. Well, it's near being in full swing. And then it will be launched at the Talent Summit. Next slide, please. So you can see here the priorities that we're focused on, and I've touched on all of these thus far. And next slide, I wanted to just help me in part, but help you sort of as well. Think about what the Oregon Youth Works Advisory Board's callouts are in terms of your work, providing equity-minded advice and oversight, as well as implementation and alignment of youth workforce development programs. I think there are commonalities between what you're trying to do and what we're trying to do at the state board level. Secondarily, contributing to the development and refinement, as well as implementation around Oregon Youth Works strategic framework. And last but not least, promoting and advocating for financial and programmatic sustainability, which we are doing behind the scenes on the state board as well. Honestly, if we weren't being creative and innovative about how to, find both public sector as well as private sector and foundational money to help support some of the work we're doing, a bunch of it would not have gotten done. In advancement of youth workforce development and programming. So next slide. So this too, I found closely tied to the work that the state board is doing on topics that we are advising, sharing, recommending, advocating for to the HEC and others around career-connected learning, as well as career pathways, youth education programs, workforce development, rural workforce needs. We always try to strike a balance between, the good work that happens in metro, and also to consistently try to raise up the great work and opportunities that exist in rural and frontier Oregon for youth. And then last, workforce issues affecting, not last and not least, but importantly, affecting underrepresented communities. So with that was a lot. I'll stop, ask if there's any questions before I toss it over to Tony.
Feel free to come off mic or raise a hand if anybody has. Belinda, if you'd like to go first.
Yeah, I just would like to make a comment, and that is the underrepresented communities or at-risk or opportunity youth. Just to call out that there are 9 federally recognized tribes in the state of Oregon that have very specific needs and are the first best stewards of the land when it comes to the natural resource sector. So just being able to capture some of those numbers and have that metric is pretty important for the tribes. They are our opportunity youth in Oregon. They definitely are underrepresented, as we see, even with this report. And so just some sensitivity to those populations.
Thank you so much. I love that. And thanks for raising that. Years ago, I recognized that opportunity and reached out to Susie Calhoun over at Couture. I've served with her on the State Rehab Council back upstream. She is on our Continuous Improvement Committee to represent her work over in Eastern Oregon. And then, I mentioned, Belinda, the committee was almost a task force, actually, but that we pulled together for the forestry workforce study that did that in partnership with Doug Denning. The co-chair of that committee with Commissioner Craig Pope was Harris Ryback. Harris Ryback is also a member of the WTDB representing Grand Ronde. So we've been, it took us a while, but we've been diligent about making sure that we have representation on the state. And we're lucky to have 2 folks, and we are really appreciative of that. I will also say that Jeremy Ahola at our Office of Workforce Investments is doing a lot of work around tribal engagement. And in a meeting I was in yesterday, he talked a lot about data. And so I think there's an opportunity for us to leverage his work and our work. I know that I connected him to both Susie and to Harris, and he's already had conversations with them about what better partnering looks like, how we can raise up the needs, voices, and support for the tribal community. So it is a priority for the state board and for the Office of Workforce Investment. So hopefully that helps with answering your question and comments.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions? Okay. I'll toss it over to you, Tony, to share and sort of go through the next 2 slides. Thank you.
We can advance one, I think, Ashley. So I have a unique position, I think, in that I get to work on the front lines and serve on the Workforce and Talent Development Board, which also then put me on the Workforce Readiness Committee. You can see the things that we tend to focus on there. I've had my head mostly in the Oregon employability skills. I think many of you have probably heard about that. I hope you continue to hear about it. That program has really come a long way, especially with an ODE investment. We use it here at the Kroc Center. I'll share a little bit more about that in a minute. But I think the thing I want to point out in terms of Oregon employability skills, it's open access and very easy to use. Here at the Kroc, we've probably done close to 400 badges in Oregon employability skills now. But here's what I want us to grasp. As frontline organizations who work with youth, we have a certain amount of resources that we beg, borrow, and steal however we can get them to do youth programming. And then what we do is we do the best we can with the youth and the resources that we have. And then we send them out the door to an employer and we get down on our knees and pray. Now, because of those disparate resources, there's different levels of, let's say, completeness around these things showing up at the employer's door. So the question is, what if we could equalize that? I firmly believe, and I've been in workforce a long time, have a workforce background. I firmly believe that Oregon employability skills is becoming that equalizer. Another good guest, if you haven't had her on here, would be Sherry Clark. She could go over this stuff with you and show you really how far it's come with the websites and videos and different things that are accessible now. We love it here at the Kroc Center. In fact, our internal workforce skills building programs are some of the most popular that we have that students select. They electively choose to do them. Anyway, so very important. And we can go to the next slide. And I think why Todd invited me here was to help you understand how all of this stuff we talk about. And I know if you're from the public sector and you're on one of these committees, a lot of times it's like, wow, there's a lot of stuff to get your head around. But I get excited about what actually makes it to the ground in terms of our workforce partnerships and the kinds of resources that we can pull together. And so a couple of years ago, we at the Kroc Center, my team and I, we put together a summer program to go after summer funding, which came through Salem-Keizer Public Schools. We weren't quite sure what we were going to do until we went to the Talent Summit and watched Jim Taylor and Carla Clark do a presentation on I'm going blank. What is it, Jim? Team Oregon Build. Team Oregon Build, and then Career Connected Learning got pulled in there. And so I hadn't seen Jim in a while. And when he was doing this presentation, I thought, that's it. That is what we could do. We could go after this money and we could build sheds for the summer. And so Jim and I did a big bear hug in the hallway. As you can imagine, Jim's a hugger in case you didn't know that. And he was ready to give me 10 units right on the spot. And the project was very conceptual. 2 days later, I had a group of people in my office here at the Kroc Center. And one of the requirements for that grant that summer was that you had to do credit recovery in math and English. And so I looked around the table. There was quite a few of us, different organizations, including Chemeketa at the time, a representative. And I said, does anyone in here know how to do high school credit recovery and get those credits back to the high schools? And everybody shook their head no. And so I said, well, here's what we're going to do. We are going to write into this grant that we are going to do it, and then we're going to figure it out. And that's what we did. So this grant came together. And for those of you who have dealt with summer funding, it comes out in very short notice and it's kind of comes late and you have to really scramble. But we managed to put together an 8-week high school credit recovery summer program that included recovery in math and English. It included 5 credits in APR 101 through Chemeketa Community College. The students got OSHA 10 training. They got first aid and CPR training. They got OES training, and then we did a Wise Mind social emotional wellness component. All of that in 8 weeks. It was beautiful the way that came together because all of the partners figured out just how to get it done. Like anyone I called didn't tell me no. I had to find a building, you guys. I had to figure out who's going to do my skills training for the summer. Where are we going to put this thing? And that was a lot of texting before the Talent Summit was over, by the way. And then we had to line it all up. We found out just 2 weeks before launch that we actually got the funding. So you can't recruit students, right, if you don't have funding for a program. So 2 weeks before launch, we found out we were getting funding, and then we scrambled to recruit. We recruited about 30 for 24 slots. 30 students came to an orientation. We had 24 slots to put them in. We got 24 slots filled. And the cool thing about this program is that over the course of the summer, 8 weeks, summer commitment of these youth who needed some credit recovery, we had 100% attendance. I don't know that there's a summer credit recovery program that can boast 100% attendance. Maybe it's out there, but I'm just saying there's something about programs like this when we're able to bring several resources to bear, come together, work together, make something happen, and have such a great impact. So I think what it is in terms of that high level participation and engagement from the students is they know they're engaged in something that's bringing value. So we built 12 8 by 16 foot shed units that went to Church at the Park here in Salem. And the kids were aware of what they were building, where they were going, who they were helping, and so forth. And two, I realized very quickly that the other strong appeal to programs like this is that it becomes the place of stability for those young people who are engaging with us during that time frame. It was an all-day program, 8 hours a day. And what I mean by that is one of the days, a student asked one of the instructors, hey, my cousin's getting out of jail. He's going to swing by and say hello. Do you mind if I go out in the parking lot and say hi to him? And of course, absolutely. Well, he goes out there, and apparently his dad had also gotten out of jail, and he hadn't seen him in a long time. And he was able to make that connection with his biological father as well. It's those little things that we don't see that young people are dealing with on a daily basis. So their life could be chaotic otherwise, but programs like this offer them a place of stability. And I really think that's the draw when it comes to what causes a young person to engage and start moving forward again in life. And so I love creating stuff like this for young people to engage and get back on track and start moving forward. We do other workforce programs here at the Kroc Center as well. It's kind of always been my happy place to work with kids who struggle. When we talk about funding and at the state level and different kinds of funding that we advocate for, you guys who are doing this program, I know you know, like the kids who are really struggling, dropped out of high school, they're the hardest kids to serve, and they're expensive to serve, right? We have to find them, we got to motivate them, we got to keep them motivated, we got to get some support services around them. But when you do that well, boy, you see the lights come on, and it's the most beautiful thing to see that a student realizes that they in fact add value to their community, and they see it through these processes, right? And what I've learned is once they realize they can do that, it changes their perspective on things, changes their perspective on education, like maybe I should finish now, changes their perspective on authority, like maybe there are other smart people in the world. It changes their perspective on their peers and their friends, like maybe I shouldn't hang out with that group anymore because I want to do something with my life. Like those are the three big ones that I've seen over time. Been doing this work since like 2000. Those are the three big ones I've seen over time that are very consistent. Once you get the young person to a place where they realize they're adding value to their community. Why? Because it adds value to themselves, right? And so we feel that, we see that when you bring them together. So we had elected officials. We held the state executive committee board out at the site that summer. I really brought anyone I could find to the project, because one of the things as a local director, when you create something fun and exciting, you want to figure out how to keep it going, right? And so I invited Salam one day, who now works for Mountain West Center for Community Excellence, the foundation, and I kept inviting him actually, and he wasn't coming. And so I started sending him videos and pictures. And finally one day he said, I got to come see this. And so he did. He came to see it. He was blown away. It was a beehive of work. We were able to have enough room inside this building we were renting to have 4 kids per unit. So every kid had something going on every minute of every day. It was beautiful. And so then Salam goes back to Mountain West and says to Larry, he says, Tony's doing what we've been trying to do for a long time. Why don't we get behind that? So that moved us from, so all this activity adds up to something, right? That moved us from short-term funding for summer to Mountain West funded us throughout the next school year with kind of a directive to say, we pulled together a brain trust. How do we scale this type of programming? And then how do we sustain this type of programming? We're still, by the end of that year, we were still struggling a little bit with the sustainability part. Well, not a little bit, quite a bit actually. And then we got summer funding again, and we did 32 students this last summer in 2 cohorts. and did another summer program. Then I was offered more funding by Mountain West to either continue or think about a potential other path. Well, where I was at that point is we're not sustainable yet. So I could burn through another couple $100,000 and then it's gone. Or we could rethink our approach to keeping programming like this in the community. And so where we've moved, again, still with Mountain West backing, is we have actually submitted a proposal to the Salem Keizer School District to stand up an iBuild apprenticeship charter school. 2 months ago, I knew zero about charter schools. I know a little bit more today, more than I ever thought I would, actually. Anyway, so it's a very exciting space. I have no idea what I'm doing, but here's what I know. I know that there's people who would love to see this happen in our community, and I believe it can be done. And belief is half the battle. I firmly believe that when the vision is big enough, the resources will find it. And so I move in that way, and typically the stuff I need at the time I need it happens to show up. Now, I'm way out on a limb admitting that in a meeting like this. I get it, because as we look at the potential for standing up a charter school, I am $1 million short in startup cash right now. And I'm roughly a 40 to 50,000 square foot building short of a place to put it. We ultimately want to serve 400 kids a year with this construction style and manufacturing format, and be able to sustain it. Now, when you look at the ADM funding and you do the numbers, it starts to look pretty good in terms of sustainability. The big hurdles to overcome are startup and a home to live in. But again, I believe it'll appear when we need it, and I'm going to keep moving forward because so far it's still coming together. And I know we got some big hurdles. You know, there's political hurdles, there's collaboration things that have to be worked out and all that stuff. But I just simply believe it can be done. So I guess the point here, though, is because a group of community partners didn't say no, and we pooled our resources and we figured out how to get this done. The way we pass credit through, by the way, because this is always a fun one. I had a qualified English teacher, I had a qualified math teacher, and I had a qualified CTE teacher that I was paying either through the grant or on my staff here at the Kroc Center. And Chemeketa put those individuals on their payroll as unpaid staff. That allowed us to pass the high school credit through to the college, and then the college articulated it back to the local high school. So it's stuff like that, though. And then as a director, I call it preaching the message, right? I go out and just share what we're doing with anyone who will listen. And that then got the attention of Mountain West, which then funded us for a year to kind of figure out how could this thing work, which then now put us in the position of, it looks like charter school could be the best route to some sustainability. And all of that activity adds up to something. So for me, it's fun to see the high level stuff we do, and then how it starts to break down and make its way to front lines. And then the impact. This is where the impact is. I think it was Rena that was saying earlier, like the stories matter. You guys, I don't believe that data really holds much value until you can attach emotion to it. Once you do that, then your audience connects and goes, aha, I see what you're saying now, right? And then when you look the students in the eyes and you see what they're capable of, it'll just blow your mind. It's what keeps my fire burning. So that kind of gives you high level to front line, all the connective pieces. And this isn't even work to me. It's a calling and I love it. Any questions?
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Todd, for those awesome shares. Could we lean into questions, folks? Anybody have a question of Tony?
Put them all to sleep.
Ashley,
Hey,
if I
Jim.
could ask you to stop the screen share, we'll open up get everybody on the screen together. Thanks.
Can,
Yeah, Todd.
can I just say a few closing remarks? Thanks so much.
Sure.
On that second to last slide, Tony and I just really wanted to convey the importance of relationships. And Jim has been part of these conversations, as I said earlier. What can we do? Ripping off and duplicating the good slogan from our friends and colleagues at the local workforce boards, working better together, not in silos, particularly in this, budgetarily constrained and tough environment, to leverage good work that's already happening across the state. I mean, you saw the logos there on the last page, right? It goes all the way back to Doug Denny and Jeremy were involved in this. The conversations we had way back upstream with PGE in a similar environment, which ultimately ended up in the creation and development and implementation of Project Zero. Not to mention all the good stuff Tony just said. These are just examples of what's possible through leveraging existing tables, which the WTDB is. And so, I just want to extend on behalf of the WTDB, and I think I can throw Doug Denning in there based on the many, many conversations we have had around strategy and partnership. Him in there as well, is that we just want to find better ways to help you with your work, better ways at the state board table, whatever that looks like, however we can align. If that means in the metrics discussion, that's great. If it means in other ways, we are all ears. I'm speaking on behalf of the membership, not me as staff, but I think there is definitely an appetite to figure out better ways to, leverage the good work that's already happened. So hats off to Tony and all that great work, and hats off to you, Jim Taylor. You're a passionate leader in Oregon, wherever you go, in every meeting you're in. And oh my gosh, if it wasn't for you two on the back of a napkin at the Talent Summit, all that work that Tony just explained and a whole bunch more never would have happened. So thanks so much for the opportunity to come and chat with you all, and look forward to connecting in the future.
Well, thank you for your kindness, and you're very welcome. Glad to have you here. Thank you. If I may, I know, Doug, we're just a little bit over on time, but I think we're still under on overall scope. If I could steal a few minutes. The thing I'd like to elevate is we're about to go into our conversation about our 4 goals, the board's goals, and 3 of them, data, employability skills, and youth summit educational forums, were all shared with us today, like in detail. I believe we can find those connections you're speaking of. The 4th, in terms of getting back into a conversation with the governor's office and legislatively, driver's education in our remote rural regions, most especially, will profoundly impact so many success stories and create success opportunities for youth across the state. So thanks for bringing to life part of our goal setting. I did hear an invitation on May 19th to come to the next Talent Summit. And so I'm going to dream aloud, hypothesize, and make sure everybody on the screen heard that and already has marked their calendar. Sounds like a great opportunity to be in space together. Also, as one of our goals is to engage in more summit opportunities for youth. Talent Summit implies those who are coming through a training system and a workforce development system and an education system to get out there and find career pathways. Tony, so much of what you shared about the iBuild program, all of these board members see that in their own programs. They see that in partner programs in their regions. And what better place and space maybe to have a session or 2 on the impacts of our board members across the state, but also the youth work programs we collectively support through the board, right? And to hold up and lift up these profoundly impactful programs for our 16 to 24-year-old youth. And Belinda, I'm already thinking what a dream it would be to get Seneca back up there, right, to tell that story in front of a group such as a Talent Summit. I think if we say them aloud, they manifest themselves. Tony, you and I have done that where we've stood in a hallway and said it 3 times and hope the genie shows up, right? So thank you for the inspiration today. Thank you for the shares. You're going to get a couple phone calls from me and a couple lunch requests and some talking time. So Todd, back to you. I see your hand.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jim. I just thought of something as you were offering up your closing remarks. I think there's an opportunity, another opportunity that I missed in my previous comments around the Continuous Improvement Committee, which is co-staffed by Ashley Espinoza with Lane Workforce Partnership and myself. As we move into 26 and get into the weeds on that work, I think there's an opportunity that we can help direct the both of us to, capture thinking and strategies and any input this body would want to contribute to that overall research study and assessment. So I made a note, I'll flag that. And as the contractor moves along with us, once it's chosen, we'll make sure that we flag that and at a minimum have them, reach out to leadership on this committee, if not more, depending on scope, time, and money. But I think there's yet another way we can better partner with you guys, Jim, and hopefully that results in better outcomes. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you. I have to tell a quick 1 minute share. So what we do is impactful. Tony, what you do is impactful. And I recall visiting your first school year iBuild program and meeting a young person who said, hey, my mom and I were housed in one of the shelters that the iBuild kids built that summer, that he and his family were homeless, was brought in. There was a placard that told the story that this unit was built for you by high school kids from the local schools. That kiddo sought out the program and joined as a student builder to do his get back to school, get his GED, get his job training. And his mother, if I'm not mistaken, was eventually hired by Kroc Center Culinary Services, if I'm not mistaken. So, good stuff. Brings a tear. That's the impact of our work, the impact of your work, and what kids can do for our communities. So beautiful stuff. All right. I can never be in a meeting with these two guys without somehow crying. So thanks a lot. Get out of here so we can get our work done. Big hugs to you both.
Thank
All right,
you guys
folks, if we could,
very much.
Thank you, Tony. All right, folks, if we could ask real quick, how many folks need a bio break? If you could either wave frantically or put a thumb up, or we could take a quick 5 minutes to grab water, coffee, use a bathroom. Anybody? Yep. Okay, let's take 5. We'll be back in 5 minutes. We'll set a timer, hop back on. We'll get right through here and try to be done by 3. Okay, quick 5 minute break. Thanks, everyone. All right, coming up on our 5 minutes. And we're going to head into our, actually what I'd like to do is we head into this, JJ Josh, if you wouldn't mind just, and recognize that Brian is with us. Brian, glad you're back. JJ, just introduce yourself to the group and share a little bit about you. Grab a minute or two and tell us about who you are and your experience and what you're doing.
Hi, I'm JJ. I've been with AYA for 5 years. Down here we do a lot of little things for Coos and Curry County, housing stability, educational services, workforce development, and just a few community stuff in between. We also now have a pre-apprenticeship program out at Charleston, which is in Coos Bay. I'm the assistant CFO. I've been doing the accounting since 2020, I believe. Yeah, I don't know if there's much more to tell. I'm kind of painfully average kind of person.
No such thing in our world. Really glad you're with us. All right.
It's nice to be here.
Great. Very glad to have you with us. Okay, if we could go into the agenda, and we are looking at the 4 goals, everybody, from our time together down at that Southern Coast visit. We established data, Oregon employability skills, the Youth Summit Educational Forum, and then a recommendation to the governor's office on return to driver's education, focusing on those profound impacts in the remote rural areas. I missed grabbing the list of names of folks who had previously communicated that they'd like to be involved in some of these items, and so I apologize on that. That's a miss on my part, but I would like us to move into this conversation. Doug, I think you wanted to do a little ground setting on the 4 goals and some of our potentiality.
Yeah, I can definitely do that.
Thank you.
I did find the list. It was actually just buried under my.
You have one as well.
So I do have
Okay,
it
thank
for
you.
when we need that.
Sure.
So yeah, and I guess just to do a little context of this conversation and what we just had learned about the WTDB and what's going on at the state board level and the work that we do. And Todd was talking about where there is all of this integration and the work that this board has said the direction that they want to go, and what the state board is talking about and advancing. So that's really, really cool. And Todd also talked about coming up there was going to be a task force on metrics to talk about how do we look and how do we talk about the work that is being done. And in that task force, he put out an invitation yesterday to our youth team. If there might be a youth team member that would like to be a part of that task force, he'd asked me earlier if I would also join and be a part of that. I talked with him earlier too, and about if there's a staff or a board member that would be interested, it would be really cool. So when we talk about goals, when we talk about data, particularly as one of the goals, if someone is interested, that would sure be a cool opportunity. So it was a nice time to make that invite and to help make that connection. So I throw that out there. So yeah, so I guess just a little bit of history. As Jim mentioned, we came up with the goals. We agreed upon the goals when we were down in Coos Bay. And then on this last meeting during the summer, we brought it up again. We talked about, hey, we wanted to talk about engagement and where we're going to go next with the goals. There was some conversation. It wasn't robust conversation, I will say, as far as the goals were concerned and moving those forward and what folks felt like they had time to do. And, since then I talked with Brooke and with Jim. I've talked with my boss, with Julia, the director of the Office of Workforce Investments, really in talking about the role of board members, the role of staff, the role of the agency. And I thought it might help just to kind of make that a little bit clearer when we talk about this work that needs to be done. And the board member involvement doesn't need to be in the weeds doing the nitty-gritty and pulling all those details together. That's what staff, I mean, that's what we get paid to do here at the HEC. Really for the board's participation and the need that staff have from the board really is to provide that overarching guidance and help set the direction for those conversations and be a part of them, which is why Jim is talking about wanting to go back and look and see who said, hey, I'd be really interested in working with that, but not necessarily meaning that you'd have to lead it, but to definitely be a part of it and work with us in our office to make those things happen. So I wanted to mention that. I've just got a few notes here. So when we talk about the goals, again, talk about how they crosswalk. And Todd, I think, did a nice job throwing in the one slide. I didn't know he was going to do it, that talked about the goals and the vision of this group compared to the goals and the vision of the state board, and how they do align. And I thought that was really slick. That actually means that that's one less thing that I need to do to point out as I talk right now. So I do appreciate him bringing that up. We are going to move in, and I'll be quiet a minute, give it back to Jim. We are going to move in and talk about the goals, but I will say this, out of those 4 goals, we need to decide, make sure that, are those the 4 goals you all want to move forward with? And we don't really have time to get into a whole session on goal development during this meeting, but if there's something that's happened and it's like, whoa, that is just way off, we should probably have a red flag raised for that. The data conversation, in talking with staff and in talking with the management team at our office, data is really kind of the priority need right now for some board involvement and to help determine what those metrics or a dashboard or key performance measures. I mean, we can come up with whatever name or whatever acronym to describe them, but to help give guidance for the data that's being collected. There is a final, or an annual report rather, that's being developed. It's almost final. Jeremy and Steph have taken the lead on putting that all together, and it will be available for the board soon. It's specifically tailored to give and present to the board. I think that will help a lot when we have the discussions around data, and when we talk about what the key, sorry, I just saw your post, Jim. I lost my train of thought. Anyway, what those key metrics should be, you can see what we are currently gathering. You can see where there's gaps. You can see where there's need. You all received a report, not quite in this format, not nearly this polished last year or earlier this year. So this will be just kind of a recap of what's happened since then. So if the hope was, when we thought we could meet in person, would be to really dive into this and do some sticky note exercises on the walls and really dial these goals in, really talk about, and hopefully come out of, particularly with the data conversation, what those metrics could be for staff. And we really don't have the time, and it'd be a little more difficult to try to squeeze that in today. But when we do talk about the goals, if we could prioritize in that area for as much time, Jim, as you can make into it and get everything else in, that would be great to talk about what, if there are some basic things. And when we talk about the basic things, when we talk about overarching, like an example would be, say, the board is interested in seeing some metrics around youth and young people being connected to career pathways. Not down in the weeds of this, that specific piece of this sector, but we would like to see that track. We'd like to be able to report out on that ourselves. So I hope that kind of gives a little bit of an idea of what we're looking for. And with that, I guess, whatever we can't get done with that conversation today, that's fine. We will pick that back up at the next meeting. And I think working with we're gonna do the leadership. We'll end up having a vote here in just a little bit on elections for the chair. But I think I'll work with whomever is in those positions to make sure that becomes a major major focus of our next meeting to really dial that in. So I think those were all my little bullets, Jim. Yeah, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, thank you. And I got my whole screen back, so I also want to recognize that Paola is here. Thank you. Good to be back together again. And board members need to hear your voices, please, please. So put the 4 goals in there, grabbed a quick snippet. It was in the calendar packet for you, which included that presentation from Todd and Tony. And I think I lifted the 2 that Doug is referencing in terms of that cross and interconnectedness with the WTB work. I think my first question is, how are you feeling about those 4 goals still? And then my next question would be, who has a passion for a particular goal? And then my third would be, if those are our active goals without major modifications, and if we have a spread of passion across the 4 goals, what would be the process you would like to see to be more efficient, move some work forward between now and the next meeting? And could that possibly look like the model of WTDB itself, where they establish some subcommittee work? And to Doug's point, I think hearing the availability and knowing the skill set of the staff on the team, a subcommittee meet or a make forward progress could look as simple as some passionate persons around data get together with Doug, Ashley. There's a good conversation, some notes are taken, and some product is made available to we, the members of the board, for analysis and commentary. Okay, so first question was, how are we feeling about the goals? And are there passionate people on these goals? I'll leave it open.
Jim, can you remind me, when is our next meeting? We don't have a
Ashley's
date yet,
going to
do
look
we?
it up. We do not have a date. I'm going to propose we try to make something happen near and around the Talent Summit. I think there's an opportunity. Doug's got his hand up, I think.
Yeah, I was just going to say the dates have been set. They're tentative dates for 2026.
Super.
Ashley did send those out. They can definitely be tweaked if we need to. And that was actually one of the things, the last item on the agenda for today was to confirm that those dates work. But we can talk about it right here too, Jim, if that fits in with what you had messaged me about.
Let's do it.
Changing that spring date. So.
Okay, April 9, it appears.
Oh, I'm having a grandbaby that day. It's already scheduled.
Okay, so I see April 9. Yep, go ahead.
I think it makes sense. I mean, if we have a couple of months before our next meeting, is that we do some committees for at least, a meeting or 2 of those committees to kind of at least start lining out the tasks associated with these goals. And then when we come back together, I think that would be a good time for discussion around it. Oh, and I like digits meeting up adjacent to the Talent Summit. That's a great idea.
Thank you, Rena. Thank you, Digit. Oh, Digit, you're muted if you were sharing.
Oops, sorry. I was going to say, I know not everybody's maybe planning on going, but it might be a good time if majority of us were, to look at the day prior, the day after, and maybe hammer some more of this out. Just a thought. I know our hands are tied a little bit on meeting in person, but I'm still going to push the envelope.
Thank you, Digit. Other voices, please.
Just coming into this, I think the 4 goals are perfect. For myself, I feel like the organ employability skills should be definitely top of the list, just in my opinion.
Great, thank you. Doug, a chance to either read out who has previously said they're interested in a particular goal, or we can go around the horn right now and folks can say, yep, this is the call I want to be on with Doug and Ashley and board leadership and make some forward progress. Okay, Rena's got data. Great, in the chat or out loud. In the chat's probably most fruitful. Help us keep accurate notes. Thank you. What would be the one or the two goals that you would find the most passion for yourself and for the programs that you support and for the board? And if you're not comfortable putting something in today, Doug and I can connect with you in the coming weeks just to do a touch point with everybody. Thank you, JJ. Thank you, Digit. We've got multiple thumbs up and hearts on the May 19th thing. So, start asking some questions. Okay, thank you, Paola. I'm a fan of OES and Youth Summit work. Belinda, great, thank you. I think we touched on everybody, did we not? I think we got them all. Okay, fabulous. Thanks, everyone. That's all the board members. Super. Doug, if that works for you, then we will start to kind of just do some separate emails, pull ourselves off into those goal teams, get a meeting amongst us, and any objection if Doug and I try to reach out or future leadership tries to reach out in the next 30 to 45 days to have that initial conversation call, that would leave about a 2-month window to get some work done in preparation for the April 9. Does that feel like a balanced approach to, okay, that'll be our goal then. 30 to 45 days to have a first meet and then some work time to prep for a good April 9 share. And then goal of gathering May 19. Okay.
Jim, I might just put on the record too that the last time we met, Davey, who's not here, and I don't know if this is still would be an interest of where he'd like to spend some time, but he had also mentioned that he would love to be a part of the essential employability skills conversation.
Super. Okay. Any additional questions or comments on the 4 goals before we move to next item? Not seeing any. Okay, Doug, if and when you're ready. If you need a minute, I can tell a story. I've got one.
I just got to find my notes here. Writing all over. All right, so that would move us into the officer election conversation. Am I on track, Jim?
That is correct, yes.
All right. So there's 2 parts to this. So I think before we dive into the elections, and Jim and I and Brooke have had some conversations offline. I said I'd be certainly more than willing to lead the conversation for this portion of the agenda, and then turn it back over to Jim when appropriate. So when we put the board together, there was a decision that needed to be made. Does the board want to meet, or does the board want to have 2 co-chairs, or would we like to have a structure where there's a chair and a vice chair? And I think we talked about there's benefits to each of those options, and what we chose was to have 2 co-chairs to kind of share the burden. At the time, we weren't sure what the lift actually was going to be. It was brand new. We decided that at our first meeting. So what would that look like? In practice, over the last year and a half, in visiting with Jim and with Brooke, they feel it might be better to have a chair and vice chair moving forward as far as the structure. And to make a change like that would need to be a formal change in the bylaws. As staff, I support either one. I just want to make sure that it's working the most efficient way to make all of this work. And I think again, both have its merits. And Jim, even though you'd asked if I would, kind of lead the conversation, if you want to share any thoughts as to why to share with the group, and then maybe we can open it up quickly for discussion to see what folks are thinking and if we need to take a vote to change the bylaws.
I don't know that anything really rises to the top. I think it was just a natural to get us kickstarted. It made sense to have multiple persons being readily available to support and lead. And I think now that we're trying to get into a groove of action and engagement and efficiencies, that moving to a more traditional structure was kind of a sensical next step. Absolutely open for conversation and questions.
So maybe I guess I'll ask, is there any objection or points that anyone would like to make about moving to a chair and vice chair structure?
I think Jim and Brooke are the ones that can tell you what's working best, since it's been their responsibility.
Thanks, Rena.
Yeah.
I was going to say that's my thought is, yeah, like Jim said, we chose that to get things rolling, not knowing. Now that we know, they've been in the role for a year, they have the best level of insight and feedback to say, hey, is this working? Is this best? Or is a more traditional structure more valid? So I'll absolutely defer to their judgment.
I think what I would share is an efficiency factor. When it's a co-chair positioning, Doug is responsible for getting a full conversation and kind of documenting decision making with both persons before he can kind of move to the next step. We recognize that with our specific busy lives and all of our specific lives is that can sometimes slow down Doug and team. So in a traditional format, you would call the chair first, get feedback, move forward the agenda, move forward gatherings, meetings, conversations. If that chair was not available, you could call the vice chair and proceed efficiently. But in a co-chair scenario, you're obligated to reach out to both and get responses from both. So that, I think, is another factor that was influencing our thoughts.
I see, Digit, I see your comment in the chat. And yes, so what the next steps would be is, if that is the decision, it sounds like there's agreement that that would be the way to go. So we would need to make there would need to be a motion, and it would need to pass today to go ahead and make those changes to the bylaws. What we would do is put that together and bring it back in draft form at the next meeting for discussion and adoption. And as far as the roles defined as best as we know at this time, I think we can talk about here in just a moment when we talk about what the elections or the election process actually for today. If that works, Digit.
Okay, so I think I need to call for a motion. All right, is there a motion to reconfigure the leadership structure of the board from a co-chair to a chair and vice chair position?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, motion from JJ. Is there a second?
I can second.
Second.
Thank you, Paola. And I believe I open it up for final questions or comments. Hearing none. Those in favor, thumb up, or an allowed yes, please. I've got 2 yes, 3 yes, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Myself would make 8. Okay. And I think that's everybody present, but I'll ask anyway. Any no's or dissent, thumb down, or say aloud? Okay, we're there.
So the next part is around the elections. So part of the bylaws states that we'll hold elections every year. We're a little bit behind. We've postponed having this meeting. It was originally going to be in October, then in November in person, then in November virtual, and here we are in December, which is why we're not having a meeting in January, because that would just be in a few weeks from now. So we are a little bit behind on that timeline, but not by far. So I guess to start off, just a huge thank you to Jim and Brooke for being in the positions over this last year plus. There's been a very big lift to get this board up and going and to help steer the direction of where we want to take it. So Jim, I really appreciate it. I visited with Brooke earlier today and also shared my appreciation for the time and work that's been put in to date. So thank you. I also have had conversations and heard from folks about the elections. Jim has shared with me that he is definitely still interested and would love to consider, or he would love to be considered for the chair or as a co-chair, depending on how that conversation went. So now as the chair. In speaking with Brooke, she said to please, I have her full proxy to share what her comments and decision would be, and it is that she's really enjoyed being in that role over the last year plus. However, if there are others interested in either being a co-chair or a vice chair, again, depending on our decision or your decision that was just made, she'd be willing to step aside if somebody else wanted to be in that position. And then the third part I wanted to share is that I have had a conversation with Digit, and Digit would be interested in what now would be a vice chair position. The positions, I mean, it's open for anybody. Any of you could want to do it. There does need to be a formal vote. We can maybe even try to refine the process for this for next year when we have these conversations. But this is where it is for right now and today. So just a recap, Jim would certainly be interested. Brooke would be interested if there's no other interest. She would certainly do that. And Digit has mentioned that she would have interest. So with that, I'll just turn it over. Jim, I don't know if you feel that there's any kind of a conflict of you leading any part of this discussion or not. I don't really think at this point there is, but if you feel more comfortable not talking about a motion or whatever,
I would ask for a proxy to take that on if that's okay. Thanks.
Okay, you bet. So with that, I will ask any discussion, any other thoughts? Anybody else want to throw their name in the hat? When we talk about what does that actually mean and what are those roles and how we further define those in the bylaws, really the main roles of the leadership of this board are to, and I'm going to just stare at my screen and pop it up because I took a couple of notes that I did not print off. But the way that the bylaws currently read is that the duties of the co-chairs include the following: setting the meeting dates, helping set the agendas, presiding at the meetings, creating any subcommittees or work groups like what's happening today, and setting the membership of those work groups when applicable, and then making sure that the meetings are fair, there's impartiality, serve as an ex officio on subcommittees and work groups that might be outside of this, such as on the WTDB. And there is the opportunity to potentially testify to the HEC Commission formally or to the legislative committees as appropriate as those options present themselves. So that really is the main focus. Where we spend time is prior to the meetings, is where we spend a bulk of the time having the conversations Jim, Brooke, and I have around what does the agenda look like? What do we want to move forward? How do we want to structure the conversations? And as Jim said, and I appreciate your comment earlier, Jim, about it's really hard to get 3 schedules together. Having to do 2 with a third is an optional if it works. It certainly will be a little more efficient. And I would like to be able to get back to where we we don't have to rely on instant messaging to have those conversations, which at times, folks, that's what we've had to resort to because that was the only thing that was going to fit people's schedules. So as far as the time commitment outside of just serving in a regular membership role, it'd be to have those conversations. You know, those could be an hour, 2 hours worth of work in between meetings, max. As we talk about the different subcommittee work, as we talk about heading into legislative session, what does that look like? There will be additional time. I can't tell you how much. It's not going to be 12 hours, but there will be some additional time to make sure that we put together and to work with not only the youth staff, but the HEC exec staff to make sure that the messaging and everything is on point for any kind of legislative interaction. So with that, I guess I'll ask if there's any other discussion or if anybody else is interested in serving in one of these roles for this current time period. And now I just see for solo chair, you're in a chair, no chair, the chair. So I think officially Digit has made a motion, it looks like, for Jim to continue to serve and then serve as the solo chair. And it looks like we have a second from Marina. So any discussion on that motion? Is there any objection to that motion? Jim, congratulations. So
I thank you all. Thank you. I wanted to throw a smiley face on their Digit. Thanks. That was fun.
So with that, Jim, now you're back to being official and no conflict. So I'll turn it back over to you to talk about the vice chair.
All right. Thank you. We're looking for the vice chair, allowed nominations and motions for vice chair position. Belinda?
Yeah, I nominate Digit for vice chair.
I'll second that.
Okay, I hear a motion for Digit and a second. Are there any motions for any other persons? Seeing none, may I have a indication of Digit for vice chair with a thumbs up? Oh, I'm sorry, Paula? Yes, please.
Oh, I was just confirming that. Sorry.
That was it? Okay. All right. So hand raised, thumbs up, or a yes aloud, please. So Paula, I got you. Thank you. Belinda, thank you. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. We have 6 in the affirmative. Congratulations, Digit. Thank you so much.
Awesome. The fun begins, Digit.
Wonderful. Okay, well, could we open it up? Meeting dates we discussed already briefly. Is there any additional thoughts on meeting dates? Doug, Ashley?
One thing I would just want to throw out there on the meeting dates. So I have heard that if we could maybe make that April meeting turn into a May meeting, we can certainly look into that and discuss it. Digit, when you had mentioned that, you also had talked about, that there are some travel restraints going on and we're not sure what the budgets are. But we will, if there is any way that we can meet one time during this next year in person, that would be awesome. I don't know that that's going to happen, but we will try and we will ask and see where that goes. I do like your idea though. If folks are already traveling for a talent summit, that sure cuts down on travel costs dedicated for having a board meeting for us. So I appreciate that because I think that may make a difference in what decisions get made. I think that was anything, unless there are objections to the dates. And honestly, I think at the next meeting, we should put on the agenda to set the dates for 2027, just so they're on calendars.
Sure.
Yeah, I know for my organization, I would probably be going anyway, so I wouldn't charge any costs to the board. They would be absorbed by my employer. And others may be able to do that as well.
I'm in the same boat, yes.
And Doug, it wouldn't cost you any money.
Won't cost me a dime. I would volunteer my time, Rena, if I needed to.
Oh, and maybe we could all just stay at Doug's house. Doug and Jim would probably love that.
Mom's a snowbird, so there's a few bedrooms at her place.
Rena, if you all wanted to come over, I'd rather you come over and help address the water that's building in our yard at this moment. So not that I wouldn't like to have you overnight for a board meeting.
We've not had rain here this afternoon, but boy, the wind has been howling.
Crazy weather.
Okay, if no other questions, comments, I am going to seek a motion to close.
I move that we close the meeting.
Thank you, Rena. Second.
I second.
Thank you, Belinda. All those in favor of closing the meeting? All right, we're good to close. Thank you all. Thank you to Doug and Ashley for all the amazing prep. Thank you all of the HEC team for being with us and joining us. And thank you for the constant good work you do. Everybody stay as dry as you can. Stay safe. Happiest of holidays, and enjoy your family and friends. Okay. Thank you all. Be well. We'll be in touch soon.
Thank you.
Bye.